you have a government that is thinking very carefully, very strategically. I play chess, not draft. We must be prepared for shocks, and we must be resilient. We must be able to absorb the hit and recover.
We are working and will continue to work to become more self-sufficient. But I want every Caribbean man and every Caribbean woman to hear me. This trade war and the possibility of a $1 million to $1.5 million US levy on all Chinese-made ships entering US harbors will mean higher prices for all of us at the corner shop, higher prices at the supermarket, higher prices at the electronics store, higher prices for us at the shop, higher prices for us at the restaurant, higher prices for us at the car dealership and beyond.
Welcome to today's video, guys. In today's video, we'll be talking about some of the response to the reciprocal tariffs of Donald Trump that has imposed worldwide. If it is your first time on this channel, kindly subscribe, like this video, share this video, and also remember to click the bell notification icon so that in case I get to post, you'll be notified. And to my channel subscribers, I appreciate you for always taking your time to come back and watch my videos. The implementation of the reciprocal tariffs by the United States of America President Donald Trump has significantly impacted countries worldwide, including Jamaica, Caribbean states, and African nations. These tariffs, introduced in February 2025, are designed to match tariffs imposed by other countries on US goods, aiming to encourage fair trade practices. When talking about the Caribbean nations, most of the Caribbean nations have been given a tariff of 10%. It is only Trinidad and Tobago that is having 12% tariff, and Guyana that is having 38%. On a global scale, a country like China has been given, 34%? And Donald Trump is threatening to even increase the tariff to 50%.
Now, Donald Trump says the United States is poised to slap an additional 50% tariff on China. This is posting on his Truth Social account. Let's show you what he's had to say. But yesterday, he notes that China issued the retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs, he says, going on to say, therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50%, effective from April the 9th. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries, which have also requested meetings, will begin taking place immediately. That is Donald Trump saying that
these tariffs to the layman, the lay people are just, maybe they think that they are so minute that these tariffs cannot affect them, but it has a lot of effects. Let's look at some of the effects that this tariff it is having on the Caribbean nations, and in particularly, let me start with addressing the effects of this tariff in Jamaica. You know, Jamaica is heavily reliant on trade with the United States. And also, Jamaica is one of the countries with a high number of its citizens living in the diaspora, and in particularly in the United States and Canada. So they heavily rely on trade with the United States, which brings about several challenges due to these tariffs that have just been imposed by His Excellency Donald Trump. One of the challenges is the export challenges. The key Jamaican exports such as bauxite, bananas, coffee, and rum may become more expensive in the United States market, potentially reducing their demand. Also, the supply chain is likely to be disrupted. The tariffs have disrupted global supply chains, leading to increased production costs. Jamaican manufacturers, depending on the United States inputs, may face higher prices, which could be passed on to consumers, and people might start looking for the cheaper commodities in the market. That will mean that the United States, the company that are producing from the United States, will benefit from this. Talking about the tourism sector, there are a number of risks because the stricter U.S. travel policies could reduce the number of American visitors to Jamaica, weakening a critical revenue stream. And you know, Jamaica is one of the countries with pristine beaches and several touristic destinations. If the number of tourists are reduced, the economy of Jamaica, the macro and the micro economy of Jamaica is likely to be affected. Talking about the effects of these tariffs on other Caribbean countries. Caribbean nations, as I've said, majority of them have been imposed with a tariff of 10%, except Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, which with Trinidad and Tobago having 12% and Guyana having 38%. And you realize most of these tariffs, the countries that are imposed with with the highest tariffs, they have something. They have something to offer to the United States. For example, China. You have seen China have been imposed with 34% because most of the production companies are being taken there because of low labor costs. And also talking about Guyana, a country that, although it is in the Southern America, it is part of the Caribbean. They recently discovered oil, and most of this oil, it is said it is likely to be imported to the United States, and they are with the 38%, they must come to the table with the United States to negotiate these terms. The Caribbean nations, including the Jamaica, are feeling these effects of these tariffs. One of the major concerns in the Caribbean at large will be the uncertainty in the economy. The United States tariffs have contributed to global economic uncertainty, or will more likely contribute to the global economic uncertainty, affecting trade relationships and economic stability in the Caribbean. There have been regional concerns from several Caribbean leaders about these trade tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. Caribbean leaders such as Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown have expressed that Trump's proposed tariffs pose significant threats to the region's economic well-being. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness has not been left out. This is what he recently said.
While the government of Jamaica has not yet received formal notification on the precise implementation procedures, including whether these new tariffs will override existing CBI provisions, we are actively engaging with the United States Trade Representative and other relevant authorities to seek urgent clarification. We are also conducting a detailed technical assessment in collaboration with relevant ministries and agencies to fully understand the scope of these tariffs and their implications for Jamaica's trade and industrial policy. It is important to emphasize that these developments do not reflect any erosion in the long-standing and strong bilateral relationship between Jamaica and the United States. Rather, it reflects a broader recalibration of U.S. trade policy that is global in scope. Still, we will use every available diplomatic channel, including working with our CARICOM brothers and sisters and utilizing the Office of Trade Negotiations to seek to preserve the positions our exporters have secured over decades of deepening trade ties with the United States. Preliminary analysis indicates that some of our top exports may fall under exempted product categories, and we are working to confirm and, where possible, to expand these exemptions. Again, I must emphasize that clarity is still needed on several matters. Furthermore, there may also be opportunities to be found, and we must therefore be proactive and prospective. So to our manufacturers and exporters, we understand the uncertainty this announcement has created, and we are with you every step of the way. You are not only integral to our economic strategy, you are national champions of our resilience and ingenuity. The government will continue to advocate on your behalf and ensure that your interests are protected in any new global trade architecture. I will wrap those statements in my own comments. Jamaica has pursued a very strategic foreign policy in the same way we have pursued very strategic economic policies. If it is one thing that you can be certain of for a small, open economy like Jamaica, is that we will have shocks. Exogenous shocks. Things that happen outside of and beyond our control. In the past, we used to say it is other people's fault. In the past, we used to hope that good friendships will come to our rescue. In the past, there are those who believe the world owed us something. That is not my stance, and I have not run this government in that way. We must be prepared for shocks, and we must be resilient. We must be able to absorb the hit and recover. And we must put ourselves in a position to always be welcomed at the table to negotiate. And where we have our truths and strong positions, we must speak them clearly without fear to authority and powers. And we do it without bombast, hysterics, and hyperbole. And we get the job done. As we have for the last 9 years at the helm of this country, carrying Jamaica through the worst pandemic, the worst global shocks as a result of the pandemic, through a hurricane followed by a tropical storm, all kinds of shocks. And what used to take us 30 years and 17 years to recover, we recover momentarily. So for those who take this for granted and would wish to diminish it and believe that there is something else, let me urge you to think carefully. This is a new world, an uncertain world, but Jamaica stands on its 2 feet, erect and proud. We will secure our economic independence. And I want every Jamaican to appreciate that. So yes, it is uncertain time. But we have done the necessary work. We have built the relationships. We have placed ourselves in strategic positions to be heard and to be heard from and to be consulted. When these changes are going to happen, we know that they could have long-term impact. We started planning long ago. So when you don't hear me say and run out and make statements, because you have a government that is thinking very carefully, very strategically. I play chess, not draft.
Also, Barbados Prime Minister, Her Honorable Mia Monttley, on behalf of other Caribbean leaders, because she's currently the chair of CARICOM, has come out and spoken about this.
Good day. I speak to all our Caribbean brothers and sisters today, not as the Prime Minister of Barbados, but in my capacity as chair of the Caribbean community. Our world is in crisis. I will not sugarcoat it. These are among the most challenging of times for our region, since the majority of our members gained their independence. Indeed, it is the most difficult period our world has faced since the end of World War II, 80 years ago. And now, we are on the precipice of a global trade war. Our Caribbean economies are largely reliant on imports. Just go to the supermarket or visit the mall or the hardware shop or the electronics store, and you will see that most of the things there are not produced in this region. Many of those commodities are either purchased directly from the United States of America or pass through the United States of America on their way to the Caribbean region. That, my friends, is a legacy of our colonial dependence. Together with colleague heads of state and heads of government, we have been working to diversify ourselves away from this dependence. We've already started to reap some successes, especially in the field of agriculture, for example, but we still have a long way to go. As we do this work, we have to be mindful that those recent announcements that have been made in the last few days will impact us very directly as a region and as a Caribbean people. We are working and will continue to work to become more self-sufficient. But I want every Caribbean man and every Caribbean woman to hear me. This trade war and the possibility of a $1 million to $1.5 million levy on all Chinese-made ships entering U.S. harbors will mean higher prices for all of us at the corner shop, higher prices at the supermarket, higher prices at the electronics store, higher prices for us at the shop, higher prices for us at the restaurant, higher prices for us at the car dealership and beyond. A lot of Caribbean people will think that these things that you are seeing on television news or reading about are far away, they don't impact on me. A lot of people think I'm just a farmer, or I'm just a school teacher, or I'm just a mechanic. They say, I live in St. Lucie in Barbados, or I live in Portmore in Jamaica, or Kingstown in St. Vincent, or Rima in Trinidad, or Basse-Terre in St. Kitts, or San Ignacio in Belize. These problems are far away from me and they don't impact me. That is what you will hear them say. But the reality, my friends, is that if you buy food, if you buy electronics, if you buy clothes, it will impact you. It will impact each of us. My brothers and sisters, our Caribbean economies are not very large. So we are and have always been at the whims of global prices. If Europe and China and the US and Canada and Mexico are all putting tariffs on each other, that is going to disrupt supply chains. That is going to raise the cost of producing everything from the food you eat, to the clothes on your back, to the phone in your pocket, to the car you drive down the road, to the spare parts that you need for critical infrastructure. That means higher prices for all of us to pay. And sadly, yes, this will impact all of you, regardless of what any of our Caribbean governments will do. We could lower our tariffs to zero in CARICOM, and it will not make a lick of difference because our economies are small and vulnerable. This crisis, my friends, will impact not only goods, but it may also have a large spillover effect on tourism. We suggest that the region take steps to sustain the tourism industry, as likely worsening conditions in many of our source markets will have negative impacts on people's ability to travel. We call on our regional private sector and the tourism sector to come together and to work with governments to collaborate for an immediate tourism strategy to ensure that we maintain market share numbers as a region. My friends, I pray that I am wrong, and I'm praying that cooler heads prevail across the world and leaders come together in a new sense of cooperation to look after the poor and the vulnerable people of this world, and to leave space for the middle classes to chart their lives, to allow businesses to be able to get on with what they do and to trade. But truly, I do not have confidence that this will happen. So what must we do? First, we must re-engage urgently, directly, and at the highest possible level with our friends in the United States of America. There is an obvious truth which has to be confronted by both sides. That truth is that these small and micro-states of the Caribbean do not in any way or in any sector enjoy a greater degree of financial benefit in the balance of trade than does the United States. In fact, it is because of our small size, our great vulnerability, our limited manufacturing capacity, our inability to distort trade in any way, that successive United States administrations, including and most recently the Reagan administration in the early 1980s, went to great lengths to assist us in promoting our abilities to sell in the United States under the Caribbean Basin Initiative. We will see how these tariffs will impact on that. That spirit of cooperation largely enabled security, social stability, and economic growth on America's third border in the Caribbean, or as we have agreed as recently in our meeting with Secretary of State Rubio, what is now our collective neighborhood. Secondly, we must not fight among each other for political gain, because, my dear brothers and sisters, as the old adage goes, united we stand, and divided we fall. Thirdly, we must redouble our efforts to invest in Caribbean agricultural production and light manufacturing. The 25 by 2025 initiative, ably led by President Ali, seems too modest a target now, given all that we are confronting. We must grow our own and produce our own as much as possible. We can all make the decision to buy healthy foods at the market instead of processed foods at the supermarket. Fourthly, we must build our ties with Africa, Central and Latin America, and renew those ties with some of our older partners around the world, in the United Kingdom and Europe, in Canada. We must not rely solely on one or two markets. We need to be able to sell our Caribbean goods to a wider, more stable global market. If we come together, put any divisions aside, support our small businesses and small producers, we will come out of this stronger. To our hoteliers, our supermarkets, and our people, my message is the same. Buy local and buy regional. I repeat, buy local and buy regional. The products are better, fresher, and more competitive in many instances. If we work together and strengthen our own, we can ride through this crisis. We may have to confront issues of logistics and movement of goods, but we can do that too. To the United States, I say, this simply: we are not your enemy. We are your friends. So many people in the Caribbean region have brothers and sisters, aunties, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers, sons and daughters, godchildren, living up in Miami or Queens or Brooklyn or New Jersey, Connecticut, Virginia, wherever. We welcome your people to our shores and give them the holidays, and for many of them, the experiences of a lifetime. I say simply to President Trump, our economies are not doing your economy any harm in any way. They are too small to have any negative or distorting impact on your country. So I ask you to consider your decades-long friendship between your country and ours, and look to the Caribbean, recognizing that the family ties, yes, are strong. Let us talk, I hope, and let us work together to keep prices down for all of our people. My brothers and sisters, there's trouble in our Caribbean waters, but the responsibility each and every day for much of what we do and much of what we grow must be ours. If we take care of each other, if we support each other, if we uplift each other, and if we tap into the strength and innovation of our common Caribbean spirit, we will see this through. Our forefathers faced tribulations far worse than we will ever do. And yes, they came through it. My friends, my brothers and sisters, we can make it. We shall make it. God bless our Caribbean civilization. Thank you.
Talking about the effects of these tariffs on the African nations. The African countries, majority of them, same way with the Caribbean nations, have been given a 10% tariff. African countries such as Madagascar, Lesotho, and South Africa have been disproportionately affected by Trump's tariffs. And most of the African nations were operating under AGOA, that is African Growth Opportunities Act. This is kind of an agreement between the African nations and the United States, in which the African countries were exporting at a zero rate, as a 0% rate. But with Trump saying that these tariffs that he is applying worldwide, it's like he is creating a trade war, of which even China responded recently, saying that with the trade wars, there's no country that can be able to win the wars, because each country in this world has something unique to offer.
On US tariffs hikes, China has made clear its position more than once. Trade and tariff wars have no winners and undermine the interests of people from all countries.
You might be having something, and you are also in deficit of some other supplies, and a country that you have imposed maybe the high rate of tariff could be having the same thing. So the trade wars, it is hard to win. Looking at these effects that it is affecting Africa, one of the countries, Lesotho, and Lesotho garment industry will be highly troubled, because the imposition of a 50% tariff on Lesotho's export to the United States will place or is already placing its garment industry at risk, threatening jobs and economic stability. Also, as I mentioned earlier, AGOA, that is African Growth Opportunities Act, concerns. South Africa expressed that Trump's tariff effectively nullify the benefits of the African Growth and Opportunities Act, a trade initiative that provides duty-free access to the United States market for qualifying African countries. I understand some countries are trying to negotiate if at least they can waiver the interest, so it can be beneficial. I know some are a bit relaxed because the AGOA is ending in the month of September 2025, so some are not in a hurry, but it is having adverse effects. Let me talk about the Jamaicans' response and how it is planning to engage with Africa. In light of these challenges, Jamaica is exploring some ways to diversify its partnership. It is planning to diversify the trade relationships so that it can mitigate the impact of United States tariffs. It is considering to strengthen trade ties with African nations, aiming to reduce dependence on the traditional markets and explore new opportunities. And not only ties with the African nations, also with the China. You know, BRICS, with China joined, it joined forces with BRICS. That is countries like South Africa, Russia. They are trying to come up with an economic bloc so that they can trade and do away with, or rather, do away with the effects of the United States. Also, Jamaica is trying to explore new markets. Jamaica is actively seeking to expand its export market beyond the United States, focusing on regions like Africa to promote economic growth and resilience. While the intention of reciprocal tariffs imposed by the United States throughout the world is to promote fair trade, its implementation will lead to economic challenges for countries like Jamaica, various African nations, and the Caribbean states. These challenges include, but not limited to, the potential reductions in export demand, disrupted supply chains, and increased costs, highlighting the complex nature of international trade policies. In response, Jamaica is exploring increased engagement with African nations to diversify its trade relationships and mitigate the adverse effects of the US tariffs. Thank you so much for staying tuned on this channel, and to my returning subscribers, I appreciate your efforts for always coming back to watch my videos. I don't take your efforts for granted. If maybe this is your first time on this channel, kindly subscribe, like this video, share it out, and remember to click the bell notification icon so that in case I get to post, you'll be notified. Until next time, God bless.